Well, we got to talk about the angle that really set it off. You sort of touched on it last week, and it's interesting that we're talking about house shows because this happens on a house show, and it happens in Eddie's quote unquote hometown of El Paso, Texas. It was shot for television, but I do think that having it be filmed at a house show rather than all the pomp and circumstance and production of TV made it feel more real. Was that the thinking at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at kind of old famous barroom scenes or fights and things that happen in out of the character of the television show, like the Tupelo bar fight. It's shot from a security cam type angle. People just bought into it. We wanted to shoot it somehow in a grainy way where it didn't look produced, where people might actually buy into it that this actually happened. Yeah.
It's a homecoming. I think everybody listening to this knows that Eddie had some challenges in his life with substances, and he had lost his wife and family, and now he'd gotten them all back, and he'd become the champion, and now he's back in his hometown. I mean, this checks all the boxes. And then he's going to talk about Mother's Day and how close we are to Mother's Day. And he brings his mom into the ring in his hometown of El Paso, and nobody thinks anything of it. This is just anything of the cameras being there, I mean, because this is just the local boy done good, and he's coming home and being celebrated. So yeah, it makes sense that you would want to film this. And then all of a sudden, here you come from out of the back, you nail Eddie with a clothesline, and you grab his mom, and it was described in the newsletters as a Vulcan pinch to her to give the illusion of hurting her without doing anything to her. And the family's freaking out. He can't really do anything to save his mom. Talking about Eddie Guerrero. And here comes some officials from backstage. And she goes out on a stretcher with the oxygen mask. And man, what a scene. If you're watching with us over on somethingtowrestle.com, we've got some stills there so you can sort of get an idea of what we're talking about. But the heat in that building, you mentioned last week, it's one thing to have them going bananas for Eddie Guerrero, but when a hush falls over a crowd, it's a different feeling, isn't it?
Completely different feeling. And I know what a Vulcan grip is, and I'm glad that they were worked into believing that was what it was attempted. What actually was, I put my hand on her shoulder so that she could take a bump down. So I put my hand on her shoulder so that she could grab my hand and guide herself. She was 74, I believe, at the time, and guide herself down to the mat. So that was a way that it looked like I was pushing her, but really I was holding on to her, taking care of her. And last thing I was going to do, I know all the Guerrero brothers. Last thing I'm going to do is hurt Mrs. Guerrero. So yeah, it was, Conrad, it's hard to describe that event for people to understand that had never been in a situation like that. When I went back out, the place got quiet because they thought something had gone wrong. And then when Mrs. Guerrero went down, I'm arm's length from her because I'm guiding her down. She looked like she had a heart attack. I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, is there not a Guerrero that can't work? That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, this Mr. Guerrero is just fantastic. And when she goes down, it was so believable. The people in their building got quiet. I mean, they were all there for Eddie. Eddie told me later he had smartened up a few of his friends, which Eddie never smartened up anybody. But he literally thought somebody's going to knife me, or if they had a gun, shoot me, or at least jump the rail and get me. So Eddie smartened up just a few of his select friends. Bruce had state troopers, not security, state troopers around the ring to protect me because we knew this is a real potential situation. And when she went down, that place got so deathly quiet. It was eerie. And the first thing went through my mind, I thought, if I live through this, I'm the hottest heel on the freaking planet. I'm just thinking, this is the greatest thing's ever happened to me. It was a surreal moment. I knew how dangerous it was. I knew I had to get out of the arena, and Eddie's on the ground. He goes, "S.A., get the fuck out of here." Because he knew the place was about to riot. And so I'm getting out of the ring, but I got to get it all on tape. And I knew before, he'd almost been stabbed in Vienna, Austria was where I almost got stabbed, and Finley saved me at least from getting stabbed. You turn your back on a riot, that's when people get emboldened. That's when they jump you. So I knew I couldn't turn my back on them, but I knew also I had to get it on tape. And I thought, to hell with this. I think I'll live through it no matter what. I got all these state troopers around me with weapons. I feel like they're going to get me out of the building, even if things get really hairy. I didn't think I was going to die. I thought I might get jumped, but it was more important to me to get the shot. And So I'm sitting there cutting this promo, and the guys around me are going, John, would you get out of the arena, please? Please get out of the arena. The security's begging me to get out, but I don't want to look like I'm fearful. I don't want to look emboldened, guys who want to jump over the rail. So I'm sitting there, and when I see somebody about to jump, I'd point at them like that. That kind of back them off a little bit and yell at them. And I knew we had to get on tape. And when I got to the back, literally my car was running. You had my stuff in the car. I got in the car with nothing but wrestling trunks and boots on, and drove out of the parking lot with a police escort. The local El Paso police gave me an escort out of the arena all the way to the city limit. They were going to drive me to Odessa, which is, I think, a couple hours. It's right up Interstate 10, where 10 turns into 20, I believe it is. And they were going to drive me all the way there. And we got outside of the city limit. We got out there so fast. It was seamless. Bruce had done a great job of getting me out of the arena that nobody followed us. So I pulled over and I told them, I say, guys, listen, nobody's followed us. I'm fine. They go, well, don't come back. We think you could be killed. And he said, we certainly can't guarantee your safety. He said, people are really upset at you. And I said, cool. I said, thanks, guys. Appreciate your help. And drove to Odessa. By the way, I got stopped by a border checkpoint in about 2 miles. And I'm sitting there in wrestling trunks and boots with no shirt on. and my stuff's in the back. And the guy pulls me over. He goes, what are you doing? And the guy's Latino, and I don't want to tell him I just gave Eddie Guerrero's mom a heart attack because I figured the guy might shoot me out here on the side of the road. So I said, I just looked at him. He goes, is there a reasonable explanation for you driving like this? I'm in trunks and boots, nothing else. And I said, yeah, but I don't know if you'll believe it. He goes, sir, just put your shirt on and just drive. I don't want to hear it. And so that's how I ended up going to Odessa.
My goodness. I got to ask, when we're hearing these reports of his mom, we're talking about Eddie's mom, we also hear that she actually got a little worked up in the ring. Like her blood pressure was elevated. I know you're getting out of there, but did you hear that people worried? Like
they didn't tell me that until a couple of days later. Yeah.
What are the details there as best you recall?
Best I recall was, the whole arena was chanting Gory for Eddie Guererro. She was honoring, her late husband, Eddie's dad, the legendary figure there in El Paso. The whole arena chanting Gory, Gory, Gory. And she got emotional, as you would expect. And so when I came out, that made it a lot worse. So she had already been worked up with the emotion. And she had some problem with her heart. I mean, they thought she was legitimately having a heart attack, is what I was told. And I mean, if she legitimately had a heart attack, I'd be dead. I'd be, for one, I don't want Miss Guerrero to have a heart attack, but two, that would not have ended well for me, certainly. But yeah, I heard about it a couple of days later that she got worked up, and bless her heart. I mean, she was such a wonderful lady, just like all the Guerreros are. I can't overemphasize that enough, how great the Guerrero people are, the Guerrero family is. And she called to check on me. She's literally having this heart issue, and she wanted to make sure I got out of the arena okay. Just a wonderful lady.
How much fun did she have being involved?
I think she loved every second of it. Her husband was such a big star. He was a great heel. Gory was a great heel, especially down in Mexico City. People loved Eddie Guererro. There's so many great stories about him. Such a great character, and she had all these wrestling boys. So after all these years of just kind of watching Eddie and Hector and the guys, their sons kind of out there, Mondo's out in Hollywood. Chavo had been a huge name, made a huge name for himself. Now she's got, Chavo Jr. out there. She got to be back in wrestling. And you could tell, I mean, she was like a Catholic kid meeting the Pope. It was like she was 12 years old, again, doing something. She was so excited. She would ask tons of questions. You knew she was going to do it right, but she wanted so badly to do things correctly. But you could tell she just was having a blast. She was out there with her baby boy, Eddie. I mean, it was really cool to see the way Miss Guerrero acted around Eddie. And by the way, Vicky and her kids did a magnificent job in that as well.
Were they all cool and comfortable? I mean, is this something that there's any pushback from anybody, or is this a wrestling family and they get it?
Nope, zero pushback. And by the way, it was Chavo's idea, Chavo Sr. We were in a dressing room, and, I came out as JBL, and it wasn't working. People still saw me as Ron Simmons' partner. They didn't want to buy me as this guy who's going to challenge Eddie Guerrero for the championship. He just defeated Brock Lesnar. I mean, here you got this guy in the APA all of a sudden now saying he's this rich guy who's going to beat Eddie Guerrero. People didn't really care. We wanted to do something, and Eddie felt like he could make anybody, as any champion would. And he really felt it strongly with me because he really liked me, and he wanted to show that he could make this match work. So we were in a house show somewhere, and Chavo and Eddie and I were the only ones in the dressing room. Chavo's senior. And Chavo came to me, and I think he got this angle from around the mid-1970s, I think, or maybe late 70s, with Roddy Piper from the Coliseum, where they brought out a donkey, and they said it was Eddie Guererro and this whole family angle, and they sold the place out several times. I think that's where Chavo got it from. I'm not 100% sure on that because I never asked him. But Chavo pitches this idea to me with Eddie. He said, hey, we're coming up in El Paso, Mother's Day weekend, and we want to do this angle. And I say it's Chavo's idea. Chavo was the one talking. I'm not sure if it was him or Eddie or both, but Chavo was the one talking. And the best part about it, Conrad, was he pitches this idea, and I said, guys, this is genius. This is absolutely genius. This is going to be awesome. And then he says, and Mom can take a bump. And Eddie says, Chavo, no, Mom's not going to take a bump. And so Chavo goes, okay. And Chavo kept talking. He goes, and then Mom can take a bump. And Eddie goes, Chavo, Mom's not going to take a bump. And he goes, okay, listen, Eddie. He goes, how about John just hits her with like a little boot or something? Not a clothesline, but a boot. And Eddie goes, Chavo, our 74-year-old mother's not taking a bump. And now Eddie's getting hot at Chavo, and Chavo knows he's got him because he keeps and Eddie knows that Chavo's working him up. But Eddie's still getting mad at Chavo. Now they both stand up. I'm the only one in the dressing room. I got this freaking brother fight of Guerrero is about to happen in the backstage area at some live event. We're the only ones in the building. And Chavo goes, okay, Eddie, all right. Say Mom goes down, but could she get just a little color? And that's when Eddie goes, fuck you, Chavo. Mom's not doing any of that. And now they start, I thought, oh my God, they're going to fight. They're going to fight. They've been doing this since they were kids. And so I'm simply trying to separate them. I thought, they're going to turn on me eventually because they're not going to, I'm the one outsider. It was so great watching the interaction between Chavo and Eddie. So when you ask about any pushback from his family, it came from his family. This whole angle came from his family. It's one of the reasons I owe the Guerreros so much.
I'm curious, what did Vince think of what you guys had done in El Paso? I don't imagine he's at the live event, but when he sees the tape, is he as excited about it as you and Bruce and Eddie were? Thrilled.
Absolutely thrilled. I mean, I couldn't have had a bigger home run. We couldn't have had a bigger home run. And the first night we had, I told you last week when Hebner punted the guy's head off his shoulders when the guy tried to come in the ring after me. As soon as that video aired, the first night we had a jumper, and we knew then. I mean, this video's changed absolutely everything. By the way, that night, Hebner's fighting the fan and beating him up pretty bad. Eddie goes after the fan, and I literally have to tackle Eddie as a shoot, and I'm holding him down. I'm going, Eddie, I'm the heel. He goes, he screwed up our match. I'm going, Eddie, I'm the heel. You cannot do this. People will not understand you beating up this fan. But after that, we knew that this was hot. And I walked in with Vince, and he goes, if I can keep you alive, he goes, we're going to do really well with this. He goes, we're going to do really well. And I said, Vince, are you more worried that I'm going to get killed or that you're going to lose your main event? He goes, oh, the main event, of course.
It's written in the Observer at the time. I think everyone realized how dead Guerrero JBL was as a pay-per-view main event. So they're going to desperate storyline links to shoot it with adrenaline. I don't know, man. That feels off base to me. Like, this feels like exactly what wrestling's supposed to be. It's blurring the lines of reality. We're getting a personal issue. I mean, that's what they used to hang in the office in Memphis, from what I've heard, is personal issues draw money. That's what this is, right?
Yeah, 100%. Dick Murdoch used to say, I call your sister a name, you call my mom a name, we fight. It's pretty freaking simple.
Yes.
And that's what it is. And again, go back to, and I picked at the online guys a lot. Before ever pay-per-view, after, I became champion, I would try to say something controversial, and they bid on it for a while, and I kind of realized, I think, that I was just trying to set them up. So I don't understand the animosity there or the angst about the angle. It's what you do in wrestling. You got to make it personal. Again, if you don't make this personal, Tyson and Jake Paul don't put 70,000 people in a building. They didn't do it because they're going to have a great match. Hogan and Giant didn't put 93,000 people in a building because they're going to have a great match. Depends on your definition of greatness, by the way. But Killer Tim Brooks used to always tell. I'll tell you an interesting story. First time I met a guy we used to call him Smart Marks. I think that's a derogatory term now, but that's what we used to call him, which wasn't a derogatory back then, I don't think. But he was a newsletter guy, newsletter guy. And he told me, he said, I hate that Killer Tim Brooks. And I said, why? He goes, his work rate's terrible. And it's the first time I'd ever heard that term. And I said, what do you mean work rate? He goes, well, he doesn't have good matches. I said, so you don't like him? He goes, no, I don't like him. Not forget about his character. I don't like him. And I said, okay. And he goes, I don't want to watch him wrestle. I said, so you don't like him at all? And I said, no. I said, if they brought in Stan Hansen to fight Killer, would you pay to see it? He said, I'd pay double. I said, you're right. He's not a good worker. And that to me explains being a heel in a nutshell. You know, Killer used to always tell me, when you take away the veneer that you're a character. Now, I'm talking about being a pure heel, not an attraction heel. There's a massive difference. When you're a pure heel and you take away that veneer that you're a character, but that you are you. And that's what people believed about me. People believed I was JBL. And that's what we wanted them to believe. And people believe that with this. And because of that, they responded, oh, that's classless. They shouldn't have done this. It's tasteless and stuff that. Because I think what we had done is take away that veneer that I wasn't playing a character. I'm just a bad guy.